Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Uh, my name's Matt Nelson. I'm the owner of First Treks Marketing. We specialize primarily in e-commerce, website design, development, online marketing programs. We really pride ourselves on the transparency in our process and being able to be very adaptable to a variety of different product types, industries, and markets. Like I know there's a common you hear it all the time. You're like, gotta niche down and like be just this like one thing. We kind of went a little bit differently in the sense that like our process is really what we lean on, and there's a consistency to that, and we've been able to apply it to a lot of different industries and markets. And yes, that's a little bit more challenging, but it is also a hell of a lot more interesting and fun.
How did you start the agency?
Whew. Um, I wish that was like a really interesting strategic like decision, but I was working at another small agency, and I really didn't like the person who ran it, and I was working with a couple other people there, and they were kind of like
Same way.
this. They were kind of like, this sucks. Like we should do our own thing. We were just like, okay, let's do that. And that was kind of it. And so we we literally left and rented a space across the street from the
Across
other
the
agent.
street. This is a
Across,
freaking amazing story. I think
across
this
the
is
street, like my window, I could look out the window and like see their building. So we'd like try not to run into each other in the parking lot. It was kind of weird.
that's awesome. So you rented a place across the street from them.
It wasn't my idea. I was one of four original members at the time. And I
That
remember being like, are you guys serious? Like, you want to just be right here? And they're like, we were in Peterborough, New Hampshire at the time. And they're like, we love it here. And I'm just like, okay.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So did you run into the
Oh,
person
yeah.
that you hated all the time?
Like, all the time. It was
Did you take
like,
work from them?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's the total FU.
Yeah,
Uh,
it wasn't, I mean, we weren't trying to be like jerks about it, but like, there were, there was just like a lot of. I mean, they had been in it for a long time, and we
all right. So
were.
what demotivated you? Because I find this, when the lesson I learned after I sold my agency and I
Mhm,
became an employee,
mhm,
in the very beginning, I felt like I was motivated. I was energized. I was like, man, this is going to be fun. I got rid of a lot of the pains that I had. Now I
mhm.
have, I can focus on this one thing. And I
Yeah,
was pretty excited. And I remember the owner poo-pooed on a couple ideas I had and just demotivated me. So what demotivated you?
I think. Well, I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head right there when you, because that's what's happening a lot. Where I've like very vivid. This is like 2008. Yeah, we started the business in 2009. So it was like I was only there for like a year and a half. They didn't do like web work. They're like websites.
Really?
What
In
yeah. It was
2008? They
don't
were traditional?
very very. They had like big catalogs that they did for
So they were the madmen. Did they smoke in the office with Brandy?
no. I mean, that would have been at the time I was my 20s. I would have been like, that's cool, but
Mhm.
it wasn't cool. It was very like stodgy and stuffy, and
Okay.
so they, yeah, I was the digital media guy, and they're like, yeah, we need help with websites, and they were literally they were building websites because at the time the owner's husband dabbled in technology, and he literally had a server in a closet in the agency where they hosted the websites. And so like part of, yeah, exactly, your face kind of tells the story there. Because I was,
Like
yeah.
I could understand a test server. I mean, we had
No,
test
no, no,
servers in our
no.
office, but not a
Yeah, no.
production
It
server.
was a production server. So I would have to like come in the morning and like make sure it was on because it would like crash all the time and people's websites would go down.
So
And
when
I'm
you
just
guys
like,
when you went across the street, did you like unplug their power?
yeah, take everybody's sites out. No, we didn't do that. We tried to be very on the up and up there. So, but yeah, the owner at the time was just like, yeah, we don't really care about like websites and online marketing and stuff. It's kind of our lost leader to get our foot in the door so that we
Yeah,
can
it's a fad,
get
right?
yeah, like nobody, ugh,
This
whatever.
was 2008.
2008. I'm not kidding. I wish I was making that up, but that's really what I had some. Just previous to that, I was worked at Mount Sunapee as their graphics and web manager, and I was like, that was a huge thing for me because I basically had carte blanche there. The my boss at that time, he was like, I don't know how any of this stuff works. He's like, can you just figure it out and let me know, and that'll be great. And I had a really fun time there, the year that I was working there. But they just that the industry is so tough because it's just like it's like any other sort of like leisure activity like that, like golf, for instance. Like they don't the marketing and design end of things is all secondary to the operation. Like they need a certain amount of bodies in the door, to like meet their quota so that they can like pay for everything. And then anything beyond that is gravy. So, I
Yeah.
worked there 1 year and I helped them grow their email list from like 500 to like 17,000 names in like 1 year. And I was like, hey, could we get like a real platform to do this? Because like it would be way easier than all of this. Like we had like Microsoft Access databases that we were like
Oh, I
hand
remember
building to
those.
try and facilitate all this crap. And they're like, nah, we can't really swing it. And I was like, all right, I'm out of here. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So is that
Um,
business still around?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh no, the agency there. No, no, no.
Oh,
They
okay.
sold it shortly after we left, and it's been folded into another. I doubt the place that took that over even does any of the work that they were doing with the companies they were working with. So
Yeah. That's
it
crazy.
is what it is. I mean, it was an interesting experience, and um, you know, I look back on that, and I'm just like, that was crazy.
Yeah. So I want to transition a little bit. You had four of you guys that started the agency.
hmm
How many's left?
Just me.
You killed them all.
No, 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 no. But that was kind of my thought process because they were both all very much older than I was, and I was like, well, if I
So
can
you,
make her
so
go,
you killed them all because
no,
they
no.
were old. I'm just
Well, you
messing with
better
you.
edit this later.
No, we won't. We're fine.
No,
So yeah,
but
what was the
it,
transition period for that then?
well, one one of the original partners, I wasn't even a partner from the beginning. I was like the only employee when we started. So because I wasn't sure. I was like, I'm like this. Like I'm gonna go over here and do this with you guys because like I'll have more freedom to kind of do the things I want to do, and that'll be great. But like if this all kind of
Like
caves,
upgrade the access database, like
yeah.
use
Oh, the
Mailchimp.
Access database stuff, that was the ski area before them. That was
Okay.
nothing to do with that. But so that one of the original partners was removed like
Okay.
a year and a half in. They did a really so there was like some very questionable decisions early on where one of the original their partner that was removed first, she brought one account with her and she managed to lose it within 6 months. And, that was
Yeah,
basically
I get
what
it.
was like covering her existence there. And I was like, what are we doing about this? Like, that's kind of a problem if you ask
Yeah.
me, but I got it. It wasn't my place to like, deal with that. And, so the other two partners they had this brilliant idea. They're like, we'll just start this second business in the business and that'll give her something to do. And like that, so she hung around for one more year and that kind of folded in on itself. And they were just like, nah, this isn't working. And so then they had to
Okay.
deal with all of that. So I wasn't really part of that. And then when
So how
she,
did you become a partner?
so when she left, um, I was kind of at the point where, I felt like I was at a crossroads and I was like, all right, well, either we're going to really like uh, come together on this, and I'll be a part of this equal with you guys, or I'm gonna just kind of do my thing. Because at the time I was doing a lot more dev work, and I was doing all like the design and mock up and front end, and I
You're doing
had
the front end and the back end.
a
You're that
little
unicorn.
bit, but I couldn't, heavy PHP, scripting and coding wasn't my specialty.
Okay.
So I ended up finding a guy who is fairly local, and um, we hit it off, and we were working really well together. So there was like a crossroads of like, okay, well, we could continue to try and make something of this as a group, or I'm going to go over here and we're going to do our own thing. And I ultimately decided to partner up with the other two remaining guys, and farm out the continue to farm development work out to this other, because I just didn't, there were philosophical differences for me in terms of how thought of he wanted to like build his own CMS from scratch and like market that and sell it. And I'm
Mhm.
very big into the WordPress community, and I always have been. And at the time, we were doing a fair amount of Joomla work because that was a pretty popular option at the time, and
Oh,
had a lot of user control embedded in. And we were doing some like corporate stuff, which it was really helpful for that. And I just did not agree philosophically with like, why are you going to try and build that from like the ground up from nothing, when there's all this other stuff in community out there that we can utilize as a base, and like not have to do that alone. Because like, what happens if something breaks, or like there's a new feature that comes up? It's like, I'm like, you're one guy. Like if you get hit by a bus, like
yeah.
what then? What So
Well, I'm curious. So, what then? You became partner.
hmm?
What happened to the other two? Did they both go at the same time? Did you buy them
Nope.
out?
So they were bought out. One The next partner went probably, so there was a part of that whole crossroads. This is just uh it's a very key or pivotal moment for me. I will never forget this. We all sat together and had a meeting at the first, of the original three, the one who went out first. We had a meeting at her house, and we're all sitting around the table. And I looked at everybody. I was like, listen, like we're doing some good stuff, and like we've got some traction here. I'm like, nobody knows where we are, like, and nobody can find us. And the reality is like, I'm not going to be able to get someone to come here and work with us if we stay here. Not to mention the fact that at the time we were paying like $24 a square foot for our rent, which is absurd. I'm just, when I found that out, I was like, you guys are all insane. Like, I can't believe how much money you're wasting on this. And I just threw it out there. I was like, we need to move and go to Concord, an hour, uh, west of here, because, or east, an hour east of here, because it's more central. It's on the artery. Like there's schools around. Like there's talent that we could actually draw from, and that's what we're gonna need. And like I sourced properties and options, and they were all like 60% less than what we were paying for where we were. And I'm like, there's
Mhm.
no reason not to do this. This is stupid. And they were, she was so like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you would even suggest that, blah, blah, blah. And the other two guys were like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. And then
Yeah.
that was kind of the beginning of the end there. So, um,
And then, so did you buy out the other partners?
yep.
And
So,
what? So did they want out, or did the business outgrow them? Like,
they both wanted out. They were both kind of on like shorter timelines than I was,
okay,
and they were pretty upfront about that from the get go. They're like, I've got maybe, so a couple of years left or whatever, and they were really good about that too, where they both kind of felt like they had run their course in this, and they're just like, yeah, I'm ready to go, and I don't really want to do this anymore, and we did. And that was a whole other thing, because there were no operating agreements. There was no like legalese about like how that was going to be handled. So like the second partner that went out, like we went through that whole process with the legal team of like creating an operating agreement and like agreeing to all the terms and like how that's going to be figured out, and like so that there was a framework because of how messy the first one was, to be like, no, this is how the, when somebody decides to you know that their time is up, here's how this goes, which was great. It was painful in creating that, and the amount of cost associated was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
I remember just being like, "Holy crap! Like, I can't believe lawyers make this much money." Like, but it was worth it, because when my last partner was done, now we had two exits that were documented, and we had a signed operating agreement by everybody. So there really wasn't much to discuss at that point of like, okay, well, here's where the revenue figures are, this is what that number looks like for you. And there were some like minor concessions in the last one that I worked out with him, because there was like a key client that he'd worked with the entire time he had been with the agency. And before that, he had like a 20 something year history with them. I was like, I don't want to work with them anyway. Like, so why don't we put that in there as a sweetener, and then you'll have some work on the side, when you're done. And he was like, great. So um, that that was
What?
actually incredibly easy by comparison.
Yeah. And what made you decide to stay and to buy them out versus sell the whole company at the same time?
um, I really like what I do. I felt like I I felt like for a long time, like one of my primary goals was to be that last man standing. To like, this is now it's mine. You know, and
Mhm.
there were definitely bigger, philosophical shifts that I wanted to implement, better ways to like run this more efficiently, to make it a more profitable operation. I genuinely am grateful constantly for the opportunity that I have to work with the great people that have remained here for as long as they have, um, and the flexibility that has afforded me, in my life, especially in the last 5-6 years, where my son's going to be he's going to be 17 this summer, but like for the last, he's got big into competitive golf when he was like 8. And so like we've done all kinds of like trips and traveling, and we've he's played in the US Kids World Championships 4 times. Like,
Mhm.
he's just so like I can have that freedom to be like, all right, well, I'm going to be here or there. And
So what kind of systems or leadership have you built within the agency to allow you to have that freedom? Because a lot of times I find that when you start an agency and you're running an agency, you're that operator and you're running 80-hour weeks, right? Because you're
yeah,
doing
oh yeah.
everything. And then you start hiring people and you become a manager, but then everyone reports to you for every single decision. And you're still working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So what did you do different in order to allow you to kind of hand off some of this stuff?
So I have uh, I have 3 directors, who report to me. Our creative director, he does all of our anything design related, but he definitely heads up the user experience stuff for like any work
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing online or communications that we're sending out. And then director of development, and so he has a team of 4 individuals, and we have 2 external resources that we'll tap, if we need some extra bandwidth for stuff. But so he has his own reports for that work, so he's responsible for all of that. And then I have our director of marketing, and she heads off the account managers, who are doing all the retainer management, marketing programs. So I'm able to lean on them, you know, to, run and manage their teams, and, they're handling all the timesheets and stuff that they're doing and making sure that they're staying on point with their goals and all that
Do
good
you ever
stuff.
feel that you want to kind of jump back in and save them, or you're like, nah, you guys got it. You know where we're going.
That is a constant. I am always telling them that, because it still happens. Like even today, where clients will just call me directly, and I'm just like, "What do you want? What do
Who
you
are
expect
you?
me to? What do you expect me to do about this?" Like, like the website's down. I'm like, "Did you put a support ticket in?" Or call Jim. I'm
Mhm.
like, I didn't just like lean on the button that like made it turn off.
Yeah. You didn't pay your bill, dummy.
Well, actually, last time that happened, that's exactly why. Because they
Yeah.
didn't update their credit card for their domain name, and it just shut off.
Mhm.
And I was like, guys, you got to make sure you pay your bills.
Yeah.
So, but I am constantly trying to make sure, because I used to. I mean, even like a week ago, this happened where like there was uh, someone didn't. What was it? They didn't follow through on something, and I was just gonna like post a comment and be like, "Hey, what's up with this?" And I have to still from time to time I have to catch myself and be like, "No." Oh, I know what it was. It was the support tickets. Like at the end of the week, we have our stuff in Zoho Desk, and um, it's everybody's individual job. We have things assigned to you to like look at those at the end of the week
Yeah.
and make sure if the deadline is passed that you send them some kind of response, and then push the deadline out so that everyone knows what's up, and that creates the paper trail, blah, blah, blah. And so I went in and saw that there was like a stack for a couple people, and I took screen grabs, and I was going to be like, "What's up with your tickets?" And I was like, "Don't do that. Send an email to Jim and Jess separately and be like, hey, I just noticed this. You might want to mention this to them." So it's just like I have to police myself just as much as
Yeah.
like trying to train the people we work with to be like, don't,
Yeah.
I'm not the bat phone.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, I find it as, it's what I call kind of the rubber band effect, right?
Yeah.
Like as you're growing your business, your identity needs to change for the roles that the
Yeah.
business needs you at. But
Mhm.
sometimes the business actually outgrows the identity of where you're at.
Yeah.
And then you kind of do some of that stuff, right? You're like, oh, that's like, guys, what's going on? And then the business kind of snaps right back down to that lower level. And you're like,
Right.
man, like we were running really good. And, and I think too, as founders, I think we do it on purpose because we want purpose for that, right? Like
Yeah.
we want that, because what I found when I reached the CEO level or that
Mhm.
identity, I only had to work like 10 to 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
I didn't have to
I,
work as like that hard, right? But like I would get bored because I was a creator and I wanted
yeah.
to like fuck shit up.
I totally resonate with that. I
Yeah,
believe
you're
me.
like, guys, and then we become like, I think there's kind of two paths when you become like the true CEO,
Mhm.
or the two traps there are, right? Like the one trap is I need to fuck shit up so I feel needed again.
Mhm.
The other trap is I'm so fucking bored, the business doesn't need me, and then I become an absent CEO. So now I'm not setting the vision or direction,
Right.
right? And that might have been some of your partners too, right? They may have gone through that. That's what I see, right? Like, and then they'd be absentee, and now there's no one steering the ship, and the ship is
I,
just like
I,
all
I
over the
felt
damn place.
I felt like that was a up until, and I'm not saying it's like ideal or perfect now even,
It's never
and
perfect.
no, and we're working really hard on, like, I'm doing so many more things like organized and constructive, in the sense that like we do a quarterly meeting as directors, and like we're talking about like
Yeah.
the bigger mission and vision. We're doing um we create what we call like rocks for each other, so but that's
Mhm.
based on like who do we want to be? How do we want to grow? What are we trying to like make better? And then we're dividing and sort of conquering on that stuff. So everyone sort of has a hand in how this is continuing to evolve, which is something we just never did
Yeah.
prior to the consolidation of this, or putting it in my hands, because I just didn't feel like there was any vision to that level. And it was just kind of like, well, we're just doing all this work and like the clients are happy and whatever. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I would like this to be so much more than that. And there's so much potential. But it's just keeping, again, like you said, like what, you don't want people to be demotivated. And I feel like keeping that trajectory and direction intact, and like regularly having something that we're working towards that's not just, well, I closed all these like issues and I finished this project that I'm working on. It's just like, no, we're all kind of contributing into this like larger effort here of like what we're trying to make this into.
Yeah.
And that's, I've done a structured like profit sharing model with the employees here for almost probably 7 or 8 years now, which I feel like has been a great tool. I have always been big on that idea of like, well, I don't want to just like run through walls and like try and do all of this stuff if I don't know that like the effort I'm putting in is
No.
being appreciated, right? Like, so what? The company makes another 200 grand. Like, am I going to see any of that? Like,
Yeah.
um, so I'm very big on that with the team, and I always tell them over and over, I'm like, if we do well, like that goes back through you guys first, before
Yeah.
I get any piece of that,
Yeah. Well, they
because
got
the
to realize
lifestyle of,
too, the founder is always the last one paid,
yeah,
right? Like, everyone wants to be, the founder and the owner and in charge until you got to do lion shit.
yeah,
Right? Like everybody wants to be a lion,
yeah.
but people don't want to do the lion stuff. So, but well, this has all been a lot of fun, Matt, and it's been great catching up with you. And for everyone listening, if you guys want to dive more into really becoming that CEO or that owner, I have a new book coming out. It's called Operator to Owner. So if you go to operator to owner evolution.com, you can get a copy of that book. And it really lays out that framework of the identities that you need to shed in order to become that new identity for that business. So you can
I'll,
write it. So make sure you guys go check it out. Until next time, have a swank day.